Max Holloway gets the better of Dustin Poirier in the trilogy bout, of course, for the BMF Championship. We're going to recap this entire UFC 318 card here. And before we get into it, folks, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC MMA content here on the channel. We had a big day today, obviously, with MMA PFL Africa earlier in the day. There is a new PFL middleweight champion. Dakota Ditcheva defeats Sumiko Inaba at the same exact time. But we're here, obviously, for the UFC, the retirement fight for Dustin Poirier. I'm going to talk about all 14 of these fights. Tomorrow, by the way, here on the channel, we are going to have our UFC Abu Dhabi predictions. Robert Whittaker versus Rainer de Ritter in Abu Dhabi at noon tomorrow Pacific. So in about 12 hours, we're going to have our predictions video up. Make sure to join us for that. Okay, let's talk about every single fight today at UFC 318. For some reason, the UFC's own graphics page is not displaying Carly Judas and Nicole Coyote. Great performance for Judas going in there, dominating the fight really from the first second onwards, eventually gets the finish. Late or middle of the third round, really put it got the card going early here on the prelims. It was a big finish night, at least to kick off the night. I believe there were 6 consecutive finishes to start the night and then 8 decisions to end it, is what it is. But yes, Judas with a very good finish in that victory over Coyote. She's a fun fighter, right? Don't let that 4-2, now 5-2 record fool you. She is much better than that record does indicate she is. She'll continue to rise the ranks at flyweight. She's one of those few fighters in that division that does chase finishes and does really go out there and try to put a beating on people. Okay, Bruno Ferreira, Jackson McVeigh. We thought Ferreira was going to win by knockout. It happened by submission, right? Gets McVeigh down, gets the armbar. A pretty quick and easy victory for Bruno Ferreira. One that we saw coming, right? McVeigh, I thought he matched up well with Cedric Dumas and with Christopher Ewart. Ewart, by the way, going to be fighting on the Contender in a couple weeks. He got rebooked to that. Bruno Ferreira, I did think there was going to be a power discrepancy in that fight. And, obviously Ferreira got the fight or won the fight on the ground. But again, there's a difference between a guy in Bruno Ferreira who's now 5-2 in the UFC with his only losses being Nurulstan Ruzbayev and Abus Magomedov, and Jackson McVeigh, who, is 6-1 professionally now, right? Saw it coming with Ferreira. Now a 5-2 guy in the promotion. Again, the fight went kind of how I thought it was going to go. A quick and easy finish. We'll see where he goes from here. I'm not telling you, I don't think Ferreira is going to be anywhere near the top 15, but right, I think, he entered the UFC, don't forget, on a victory and a knockout win in Brazil over Gregory Rodriguez. So I do think there is still potential for Bruno Ferreira. I just don't know where that is in relation to the top of the weight class. But anyways, Ferreira with the good victory. Let's move on now to the third fight of the night. A matchup in the heavyweight division, Ryan Superman Spann with a win over Lucas Breske. That is a first round finish victory for Ryan Spann as he goes out there and submits Breske in the first round. This fight just kind of further elaborates my point that I always go through with heavyweight fighting, and it's the fact that heavyweights can't grapple, they can't wrestle. And if you can, then that's why, you're in the top 5 of the weight class. I mean, I look at Jairton Almeida, I look at Tom Aspinall, I look at Alexander Volkov, who, again, I know is not known for his wrestling, but can go in there and at least defend himself grappling-wise, right? You look at a guy like Curtis Blades, hell, John Jones, obviously the top of the weight class for a very long time. To be successful at heavyweight, for the most part, you have to have some idea of how to grapple. Again, is Ryan Spann going to be in the top 5? No. But Ryan Spann will beat these lower level heavyweights, guys like Lucas Breske, off the pure fact that he can go in there and win on the ground, right? Spann's first fight at heavyweight was Waldo Cortez Acosta. Okay, he lost that fight. Well, Waldo's now a top 6 heavyweight in the world, likely, I believe, to fight Derek Lewis in his next bout. So that's not honestly that bad of a loss for Spann. Goes in there, gets Breske on the mat, gets the takedown, obviously pulls off the guillotine choke. Breske now 1-5 in the UFC with his only victory, oddly enough, being Valter Walker, who continues to rise the ranks at heavyweight. Right now, he's into the top 15, but a very good win for Ryan Spann. You kind of felt like he needed to win that fight to stay in the promotion. It would have been his second consecutive loss, but in the grand scheme of things, he would have lost 5 of 6 if he had lost to Breske. This gets him right back on the right track after getting knocked out by Cortez Acosta. I think Span can win fights at heavyweight. I do think there's a place for him in this weight class. You look at the guys outside of the top 15 in the UFC, there's just a bunch of guys who can't really grapple all that well. I mean, I look at a guy like Taliesin Teixeira, who is right outside the top 15 after his loss. Jonata Deniz, I mean, like, again, would you take Deniz or Ryan Span? I don't know. I think that's a very close fight on paper, right? In Zejiku, right? I think that's a close fight as well. Mo Usman. Like, again, that would be interesting because Usman can actually wrestle. He just is so boring and does nothing on the feet at the same time. So what I am saying is there are spots and there are fights to be had for Ryan Span. I still do worry a little bit about the chin, but obviously Breske wasn't throwing anything back at Ryan Span to affect Span all that much, and obviously Span with the guillotine choke wins the fight. That is his patented submission. That is his go-to, and Ryan Span wins the fight by first-round guillotine choke. So good on him getting back in the win column and winning his first fight at heavyweight. Now on to a matchup in the light heavyweight division. Jimmy Crute, like Ryan Span, finally gets off the schneid and wins a fight. A much-needed victory for Jimmy Crute, who, like Span, I thought would have been cut with a loss. The broadcast mentioned it, and it was true. This was Jimmy Crute's first win since 2020. So Jimmy Crute hadn't won since the first Trump administration. That was a win over Modestas Bukauskas. Since that, right, Crute loses to Anthony Smith, Jamal Hill, he draws with Benefield, loses to Benefield, draws with Bellato, and now beats Marcin Prochnow. Fight ends up on the ground. Crute's getting dominated on the feet in this fight, though. It only lasts a round, but Marcin Prochnow was levels better than Jimmy Crute stand-up-wise, and that is something that is, I think, going to continue to hurt Jimmy Crute as he goes on in the UFC. I just don't see much potential for him because, yes, he can grapple, but my goodness, he's a punching bag stand-up-wise. You know, Prochnow is teeing off, and sure, Marcin Prochnow actually has out-kickboxed Kilo Roundtree Jr. in the past, and while that may be true, because it actually is, Jimmy Crute needs to work on his striking, and I don't know what else I can say about that. His grappling, right, again, got the armbar, good finish, right? But Jimmy Crute's supposed to beat Marcin Prochnow. Prochnow is 8 years older than Jimmy Crute. Remember when Jimmy Crute was considered to be an up-and-coming guy? I mean, he got to fight... Who was it? He fought Jamal Hill in a big spot on a fight night card, got Anthony Smith on the first fight back with a crowd, at least on a pay-per-view at UFC 261, ended up losing that fight. Like, Crute's been in big spots before. What's going to continue to hold this guy back is his striking game. Just because, my goodness, Prochnow had so much success against him. I don't know. I don't think there's much else for Jimmy Crute in the UFC. Obviously, yes, he's going to stick around. But, you consider this guy, a top 25 light heavyweight. He called out Dustin Jacoby. That is a fight that he does not want. I mean, he called for it, I guess. But if you're smart, you don't fight that fight with Dustin Jacoby. Jacoby's coming off back-to-back finish wins over Vtor Petrino and now Bruno Lopez. I just don't like that. I mean, yes, right, if Jimmy Crute gets Jacoby down, he'll win, but this is a former Glory kickboxer we're talking about in Dustin Jacoby. The call-out just doesn't make sense to me. I would have preferred a call-out like, I guess Umar Sy has a fight. What would have made more sense for Jimmy Crute? Adolfo Bellato. I know Bellato's stock's down right now, but I mean, he, had the draw against Crute, had the no contest against Paul Craig. If I'm Jimmy Crute, I'm trying to get that fight back because there's never been a point in time where Bellato feels like he's easier to beat, right? And Bellato still has not lost a fight since the Vtor Petrino bout, which was on the Contender. So I know Bellato, again, 1-0-1 in the UFC, but that's a guy who you have fought before, you had a majority draw against. That's a fight I think he can easily get back and win. If he gets the Jacoby fight, I think Jacoby beats him. Just because I don't think Crute's able to hold Jacoby down when that fight's on the feet. I do believe that Jacoby can knock Crute out. Because again, Crute is kind of just a punching bag on the feet. Doesn't really do much with it in terms of his head movement. Prochnow is really, he was lighting him up on the feet until Crute was able to get that takedown. It is what it is. Crute wins the fight by first round armbar, right? I mean, 4 fights, 4 finishes, 3 of them in the first round to kick off the card. And now our next fight, another first round finish. It comes in the form of Adam Fugit and Islam Dulatov. Dulatov, I'll keep pronouncing it Dulatov, wins the fight by first round TKO. More than expected, right? We saw that one coming from a mile away. We had that in our best bets video, -140 for a first round TKO or KO finish for the German Dulatov. He's on a higher level than Adam Fugit, right? We always, you felt like you're watching that fight and it was just a matter of time before Dulatov landed that shot. I will give Fugit credit, right? He took some punches. He stayed in the fight up until eventually where Dulatov landed his big blow. So I will give Fugit credit there. But we knew what this fight was going to be. It seems like the UFC has put a lot of promotional backing behind Dulatov. They went live on Instagram when Dulatov was doing his walkout. He's 26 years of age. Obviously, they made a huge deal out of the guy being a former Versace, or I guess current Versace and Gucci model. So, they're making a big deal out of that. They're going to put the promotional backing behind Dulatov, and they're going to give him favorable matchups so he can get into the top 15 in the welterweight division. I know, again, this is his first bout in the promotion, but you can just tell when the UFC likes a guy. They gave Dulatov performance of the night. It just makes sense that they're going to start pushing him. The Adam Fugit fight, right, this was booked earlier in the year. Fugit instead got to fight Billy Ray Goff, who was booked against Billy Ray Goff, so that fight didn't happen. And then obviously you just got the Dulatov fight again. I don't think Fugit's got much of a potential in the UFC. He's now 2-3. He's not going to get cut. They'll give him another fight. But again, the thing with Fugit is he just takes too much damage, and his wins are Josh Quinlan and Yukashu Kinoshita. In all of Fugit's losses in the UFC, he's been finished Michael Morales, Mike Malott, and Dulatov. And don't get me wrong, right? Those guys are all up-and-coming guys. Malott in the top 15, 20-ish. Michael Morales, obviously, within the top 7. And now Dulatov, a guy that the UFC obviously thinks pretty highly of. But I don't know. I mean, Fugit doesn't do anything all that well. Dulatov outstruck him. I will give Fugit credit for throwing back and being able to withstand some punishment from Islam, but you knew that punch was coming eventually. Dulatov pours it on Adam Fugit, drops Adam Fugit, and eventually wins the fight 4 minutes into it. Good victory for him. The UFC needs to continue to give him fighters that they know he's better than. I don't have a welterweight on the top of my head right now that could easily be a victory for Dulatov. Jeremiah Wells, there we go. Give him an older guy, and Jeremiah Wells is coming off back-to-back losses to Carlson Harris and Max Payne Griffin. That makes sense. The Max Griffin fight actually makes sense for Dulatov as well. Chaos Williams has actually now lost back-to-back. Or if they want to keep around Nico Price, I mean, hell, they gave Jacoby Smith the layup fight against Nico Price a couple weeks ago. They could easily just give Dulatov the layup fight against Nico Price as well. Regardless, I would expect Dulatov to continue to be featured on pay-per-view cards. I saw someone on Twitter, I don't remember who it was, say that Dulatov is so popular in Germany that he can main event a fight night in Germany. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, take the UFC back to Germany. I don't know when the last time they were over there. 2016? Didn't Tybura fight there once upon a time? I think against Verdum. I think that was in Spain. I could be wrong. But yeah, Dulatov, I think he's got all the makings to be really good. However, I do think there's a prospect on this card that is much better than Islam Dulatov, and his name is Atiba Gutierrez. I think this guy is going to be a monster for a very long time, guys. That was nasty. The knockout victory over Robert Valentin. Every time Gutierrez hits Valentin's like, oh, come on, bring it on, dude. That's not hurting me at all. No. Everything Gutierrez was throwing was hurting Dulatov. This is a very good up-and-coming fighter. Again, I believe Gutierrez is going to finish his UFC career and finish his professional career at 205 pounds. He's only 23 years of age. He's a 6'4" middleweight. I just don't know how he's going to continue to make that weight for the rest of his career. But Gutierrez is 2-0 in the UFC, victories over Jose Medina and Robert Valentin, both of those first-round KOs. The power this man possesses is just scary. It's a scary proposition for a lot of guys at 185 pounds. And sure, there will be tests that Gutierrez will need to pass, and the very clear one is, okay, how is he going to respond against a really good wrestler? Will Gutierrez just go in there and completely, mop the floor with the wrestler? Will he stuff the takedowns? Will he keep the fight on the feet and do what he does to everybody? Or will a better wrestler go in there and just out-grapple him for 15 minutes? Again, the jury's still out on that. We'll see that eventually as we keep going in the Gutierrez career. But I do believe the UFC, it's in their best interest to push Gutierrez, because this guy, again, you don't see this many quick finishes at 185 pounds this consistently, right? You're going to see knockouts at 185, don't get me wrong, but you look at Gutierrez, right? Back-to-back first-round knockouts in the UFC to kick off his career, the second-round knockout victory in the Contender Series back in September of last year. Yeah, Gutierrez is good. He's a really good fighter. For Robert Valentin, now he's 0-2 in the promotion. Saw him fight Torres Finney. Torres Finney won that fight by throwing 3 punches. And Valentin, obviously, from The Ultimate Fighter. I don't really know what the future holds for him. It's likely outside of the UFC. 3 losses to start the Valentin UFC career against Ryan Loder, and then obviously Finney and Gauthier. Valentin had his whole big, show on the in the weigh-in, right? On the weigh-in stage, he did his whole hype-up thing with, I don't know if that was a training partner or that was a sibling. Anyways, he did all of that to get knocked out in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Again, everything that Gauthier was landing, Valentin was telling him, no, like that's not hurting me at all. Like, come keep pushing forward. But the problem is Valentin never threw back and just allowed Gauthier to close distance, get in his face, and wing big shots and land those big shots as well. I'm telling you, and I've been saying this for a while, I believe that Thibaut Gauthier is going to be a top 15 fighter someday. I think he's going to be a top 10 fighter someday. The guy is 23 years of age, and he's already winning fights like this. I understand the level of competition he's fought so far is not the highest, but they need to build this guy up the right way, and they need to give him a Cody Brundage next. Something like that. Give him a Cody Brundage. Give him, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight the winner of Finney's fight in a couple weeks as well. I'm blanking right now who Torres Finney's fighting up the top of my head. I'll find it real quickly. But I wouldn't mind that. He's fighting, Asma. Ooh, I don't know if you want him and Asma Bekoyev. But just give him Torres Finney. Torres Finney or, actually, I like the Torres Finney fight a lot because you can test the wrestling. Yeah, and I think the UFC would like to see Torres Finney get flatlined as well, even if he wins the Bekoyev fight or loses the Bekoyev fight. I think that's probably a good fight for Gauthier. If not, again, give him like a veteran like Brundage who's been around for a while, who does get knocked out quite a bit. Anyways, I'm really high on Gauthier. We just need to see him wrestle a little bit, but I mean, he's got all the makings with the striking game right now, man. Power's all there. He's a very good fighter and a very fun up-and-coming fighter to watch as well. Okay, this fight. So the first of 2 really sloppy fights on this card. The first of which, again, Francisco Praau and Nikolai Veretnikov or Veretnikov, however they're pronouncing it. It is what it is. I thought Praau won the fight, and I thought it was actually a really bad scorecard. I don't know how you give the second round to Nikolai. Veretnikov, I think that's how they're calling him. I'm just going to say Veretnikov. It comes off the tongue better. Veretnikov, this guy's horrible, okay? Nobody's telling me otherwise. This is just a bad UFC fighter. And I'm not telling you Prado's a good fighter either, because Prado is so sloppy as well. But the thing with Nikolai is he can't wrestle. He's got no grappling at all. And if Prado was just a little bit smarter and had a little bit better of fight IQ, he would have easily beat Veretnikov in this fight. Nikolai wins the first round. Second round, Prado gets him down. He lost positioning so many times. I know he was chasing that arm triangle choke, and at times he was chasing the Von Flue choke as well. But if Prado just, and I know this isn't the most entertaining thing to do, but if he did not, try to scramble it all, if he just kept top positioning, my goodness, Prado wins the second and third rounds. I mean, eventually Prado in both the second and third gets into positions where he's trying to take the back. And and it happened multiple times in this fight, he takes the back of Veretnikov, he's too high and he just gets shaken off every single time. Even when Prado had Veretnikov in danger in the second round, Veretnikov was dead to rights, gassed in the third round as well. Prado just can't take advantage. I don't know how the judges gave Veretnikov 2 and 3. He's just not a good fighter. His striking is all right. I'll give him credit. Was working the body really well in the first round and really damaging up Prado, even after Prado opens the fight with a really nice straight right, grabs shoots a takedown or goes for a takedown as he's throwing that first that straight of the fight. But yeah, I don't know how Veretnikov won. The guy's horrible. He lost. He got dominated by Austin Vanderford. His first fight in the UFC, he lost to Danny Barlow. He's a bad fighter. And for Francisco Prado, I guess it's time to learn PFL. You're 1-4 in the UFC now, and you needed to go out here and win this fight. And you showed some of the lowest fight IQ I've ever seen. Kevin Holland, we're going to talk about him later. My goodness. But I don't even think Holland was as bad because Holland was, regardless of what Holland was doing, he was chasing a finish because he needed a finish in the third round. At least, again, Holland thought he was down 2-0 going into the third. Prado just needed to win 2 and 3. And he sold the second round by fighting stupid. He tried to sell the third round by fighting stupid. I just thought it was a dumb game plan. I think Nikolai Veretnikov is the worst fighter on the roster. Let's just get this guy out of here. Let's give him a really good wrestler. Or hell, give him Dulatov. There you go. They're both fought in the same card. They should both be coming back around the same time. Let's just get Dulatov to get Veretnikov the hell out the UFC. And hey, he'll give Nikolai the fight that he wants to fight, unlike, again, what Veretnikov has had to deal with earlier in his UFC run. Dulatov will strike with him. Let's get Nikolai the hell out the UFC. There's this sore loser who pushed Vanderford after he lost to him. Just get this guy out of the UFC. Get him out of here. But a victory over Praau that he did not deserve at all. Nobody's telling me he won that fight. Not as bad as like the Wonderboy fight last week, but just my goodness, not a good decision. Fight of the night here, Marvin, Vtori, Brendan Allen. Really surprised that did not go to the main event between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, but here we are. The fight of the night is Brendan All-In Allen and Marvin Vtori. A fight that we did predict Brendan Allen to win, and now we did really well in the predictions early on the card, but we went 8-1 on the prelims, and then we We then proceeded to go 0-5 on the main card, which brutal. But anyways, I'll get to that later, and it is what it is. Good victory for Brendan Allen, right? Gets in that big striking exchange early in that fight with Vtori. Vtori tags him. The first major damage done in this fight is Marvin Vtori landing on Brendan Allen. What does Allen do? He stays in the fight, sits back on his punches, walks forward against Vtori, lands a big shot that starts leaking the nose of Vtori. Allen gets the takedown, takes the back. Vtori does get back up, but I mean, that was the round that set the pace for the rest of the fight. It was like, okay, Brendan Allen, I'm able to eat a punch from you. I know, again, I'm not going to be able to knock you out because you have the Marvin Vtori iron chin, but Brendan Allen was continuously in Vittori's face, kept the output going, and was able to wrestle in the first round. Showed again, okay, the takedown is there if I want it, but second and third rounds, Allen does not shoot. He said after the fight, right, this is a grudge match. I'm not going to go in here and I'm not going to shoot a takedown because I want to fight that type of fight with Vtori. Obviously, they had the whole brawl backstage, right, at a casino after a PFL fight, in Florida. That's what a grudge match should be, and I'm glad that's what it was. I was getting a little concerned that this was going to turn out like the Manel Kape Muhammad Mokaev fight about a year ago. They talked all that shit before the fight, and they got in there, and they just, they wrestled, and sure, that was mainly Mokaev's fault, but I'm glad that didn't happen this time around in another big 3-round grudge match on an undercard to a pay-per-view, right? Two judges had it 3-0 for Allen. One judge, Derek Clearly, had 1 round for Marvin Vtori. I guess you would have the first round. No, the third round, definitely for Marvin Vtori. But yeah, I thought Brendan Allen was pretty easily up 2-0 going into that third. He was able to fight that stand-up game with Marvin Vtori and beat him. And now I think this is something we have to talk about with Vtori. It's like, all right, you've now lost 3 fights in a row. You lost to Jared Cannonier, 2 years ago in a dominant performance by Cannonier. You lose to Roman Dolidze in a striking battle in your last fight. And now where are you? You're ranked, 13th in the division. You just lost to Brendan Allen, who, 2 years ago, if you told me Brendan Allen and Marvin Vtori were fighting, I'd pretty easily take Marvin. I don't know where Vtori goes, He was always looked at, even when he fought Adesanya, he was like, all right, he lost to Izzy, but this is a guy who's 27 years of age. He's still in his prime. He's going to be in his prime for a very long time. His grappling's good. His striking does leave a little bit to be desired, but you're not going to knock him out because his chin's that good. And still, again, I don't think anybody is going to knock out Vtori. Even though the minute Vtori does get knocked out, oh, he's screwed. Because that's his thing. Vittori's chin's so great. He's more than willing to fight a firefight, stay in the pocket, and trade. The second that chin does abandon him, man. Because Vittori's now lost 4 of 5. The only victory being the Dolidze win in 2023 in a very forgettable fight that arguably Marvin lost. I don't know what's next for him. I would probably go Roman Copilov, who lost to Paulo Costa in the main event. If not, if Jack Hermansson still wants to fight, I'd do that fight as well. For Brendan Allen, great victory. This is going to push him back into the top 7-ish of the weight class. Looking at the guys who need fights, there's just not many guys, right? Everyone's booked right now except for Adesanya and Strickland. We can only assume that rematch is happening. However, if Strickland is under suspension from that whole brawl that happened at that Tough Enough event in Las Vegas, if the Nevada State Athletic Commission or whatever, doesn't clear him to fight for the rest of the year, you could see a spot, guys, where Brendan Allen's fighting Israel Adesanya in Adesanya's return fight. And I just don't know if that's a fight Adesanya necessarily wants. a grappler who, again, yes, I know, again, Brendan Allen, stood there and banged it out with Marvin Vtori today. I get that. That's not going to happen if he tries to fight Israel Adesanya. He's going to grapple Izzy, right? So maybe that's what happens. I could easily see Brendan Allen, by the way, fighting the loser of Whitaker and RDR if the loser doesn't take much damage. We'll see. Maybe even the winner of that fight as well, because Whitaker, I mean, still a couple fights away, obviously, after the loss to Hamzat. We'll see, because there's just not many guys in the top 10. Well, there's only 2 guys in the top 10 right now who do not have fights. It's Strickland and Adesanya. Again, one can assume those 2 guys are going to fight each other, but we will see, again, if Strickland can get past the State Athletic Commission because of his whole, his whole post-fight antics at that one Tough Enough show. I don't know. But good one for Brendan Allen in a very fun fight. Next up, our featured prelim, Kyler Phillips, Venicious Olivera. Kyler Phillips just ran the entire fight. I don't know why here on the UFC's website it's trying to tell me that the significant strike count was 117-35 in favor of Kyler Phillips, because that was definitely not the case. I don't know what numbers they have here, because that's ridiculous. A story of 2 different halves in the fight. Well, okay. The first round was much different than rounds 2 and 3. The first round for me just felt like, all right, Venicious Olivera can't find his range. He can't get there with Kyler Phillips. Phillips is on the back foot the entire fight. He's on his bike. He's not allowing Olivera to close distance. He's not going to allow Olivera to find that one big shot. At least that was the case in the first round. Second and third rounds, it was just different, right? You could tell how different the fight was from the first second. As soon as that horn went off, or as soon as they, as soon as that second round started, Olivera blitzes Kyler Phillips right out the gates, drops him, dominates that round. I don't know, guys. If round 2 between Kyler Phillips and Venicious Olivera is not a 10-8 round, what is a 10-8 round? I mean, what is the point of having a 10-8 round if that's not it? Olivera drops Phillips twice in that round, outstrikes him 41-4, 2.5 minutes of control time. What else do you want from a 10-8 round? And now, Olivera won the third round. Phillips looked a lot better in the third round than he did in the second, because at the end of that first round, I was just like, all right, Phillips is kind of looking already gassed, because he was just on that back foot the entire round, right? He was just trying to get away from Venicious Olivera, because you know what Olivera does, right? Head down, big shots, hands down, big shots, winging them. I don't understand, though, right? If that second round's not a 10-8, I don't know what is a 10-8 round. So a good one for Venicious Olivera. It's an outcome that we expected to happen. I said at the beginning of the week, and I will say it again, and I'm not afraid to say it, I still don't think Kyler Phillips is good. How is this guy ranked in the top 15? His only victory is a fight against Song Yadong that arguably he should not have won. He lost to Raulian Paiva as soon as he broke into the top 15 the first time around. He beats an old Raoni Barcelo. He beats an old Pedro Munoz. He loses to an old Rob Font, and now here he is. He loses to Venicious Olivera. How is this guy ranked? I believe Kyler Phillips should fight Patchy Mix next. Why? Because I want Patchy Mix to win a fight, and I think it's a more than winnable fight for Patchy Mix. For Venicious Olivera, this is a guy who should continue to rise up the weight class. Chito Vera is there. Mario Bautista's there. Song Yadong's there. One of those fights, please, for Venicious Olivera. I could even see potentially a Montel Jackson, but I don't think they're going to give Jackson that good of a fight just yet, even though they should. But yeah, I could see Olivera against a Vera, against a Mario Bautista, against a Song Yadong. Likely, though, in my opinion, Chito Vera, who has lost back-to-back fights now to both Deiveson Figueiredo and Suga Sean O'Malley. But the biggest win by far of the career of Venicious Olivera. I don't know what Kyler Phillips does all that well, because he always gets into big fights, and he loses those big fights. He's not a top 15 fighter. I don't know why he's even there in the first place. Okay. Let's move on to the main card. The first fight on the main card, Michael the Menace Johnson wins as a plus 500 underdog against Daniel Zellhuber. Now, the post-fight antics were interesting, right? Michael Johnson says, oh, Daniel Zellhuber, he's a fan. He's obsessed with me. He said it was a little, but Michael Johnson goes in there and shows, hey, Unk still got it. Michael Johnson wins every single round against Daniel Zellhuber. Didn't see it coming. Okay, I did not see it coming at all. I thought Zellhuber was going to be able to catch Michael Johnson early in that fight. It did not happen. From the minute that fight started and open up the main card, Michael Johnson sent a statement out to Daniel Zellhuber. All right, I'm still here. I'm willing to trade with you, and I'm going to be first. I'm going first in every exchange, and I'm going to be the one pushing the pace in this fight. Again, Johnson, I thought should have won all 3 rounds. I don't know why he won the third, or why Zellhuber won the third. I get it. Again, Zellhuber was the one, being the aggressor, looking for more. Obviously, the volume was more out of Zellhuber in that third round, but you really watched that round. I thought Michael Johnson should have got it. I know, again, Zellhuber is the one trying to throw the big shots, but anyways, Michael Johnson wins the first 2 rounds, gets the huge knockdown in the second round. Again, Unk still got it, right? Michael Johnson, he came in today with victories over Dustin Poirier, Tony Ferguson. Now he's got a victory over Daniel Zellhuber as well. He's 38, 39. He just picked up his 16th win in the UFC. Got to give the guy credit. Don't know where he goes from here. If you want to do him and Bobby Green. No, Bobby Green's got a fight coming up. I don't know. I mean, honestly, Michael Johnson should be fighting somewhere close to the top 20. Obviously not against another contender, an up-and-coming guy. Maybe you do that. But I would like to see Michael Johnson fight, right? Another one of those veterans who's, given it all to the sport. And Michael Chandler. Wow, yeah. Kind of because I want Chandler to win a fight, but that makes sense. Michael Johnson's been winning. Michael Chandler's been losing. I think that's a meet you in the middle type fight, crossroads type backs. It's not a crossroads because Michael Johnson's 39. But yeah, that's definitely the fight I want to see next. Michael Johnson, Michael Chandler. Let's make it happen. Zellhuber, I don't know. He's just, there's no hope with Daniel Zellhuber. He's just going to be one of those undercard guys who's a fun fight to watch, but, never going to be a serious title challenger. Patricio Pitbulle, Dan Ige. As the UFC's website bugs out here. I have nothing much to say about this fight. I really don't. Pitbull wins, Patricio Pitbull wins a technical bout. Dan Ige has some moments in the third round, but it is just a fight controlled by Patricio Pitbulle, and a win that Patricio Pitbulle absolutely needed to have. Absolutely needed to get one, and he got it. If he lost that fight 0-2 in the UFC, and sure, is Pitbull way past his prime? Oh, undoubtedly, he's 38. But went in there and beat a guy in Dan Ige who was coming off a victory over Sean Woodson. I got to give Pitbull a lot of credit. Again, where does he go from here? I can't tell you. I don't know where Patricio Pitbull goes from the Dan Ige fight. But he went out there and showed that, okay, he can still grapple effectively, something that I was very confused that he did not do in the Yair Rodriguez fight. Right? That was my whole reason for taking Pitbull against Yair. I was like, all right, Yair's grappling leaves a lot to be desired. And if Patricio Pitbull can go out there and do what I've seen him do to guys before in Bellator, and I get it, just the level of Bellator fighters aren't that high. I get that. But if he was just able to do to Dan Ige to Yair what he did to Dan Ige, maybe he wins that fight. And sure, it's not like Pitbull has, 10 minutes of control in that fight, but it just changes the landscape of that fight when Pitbull's able to get one takedown, right? In that first round, he gets a takedown and just changes the trajectory of the bout because now Ige is, worrying about, okay, when's this guy going to shoot on me, right? Ige wins that third, has his moments late, but right, Pitbull really takes over the fight in the second round, doubles the amount of output or at least doubles the amount of strikes landed in that second round over Dan Ige, and ultimately that's the round that wins Patricio Pitbull the fight. I don't know where Pitbull goes. He's 38 years of age. He's fighting at 145 pounds. I don't even know who he'd fight. Calvin Kattar? No, Calvin Kattar, he's going to get cut. No, he should be fighting way higher than Calvin Kattar because Ige was ranked 12, 11? So yeah, I could see him and Josh Emmett. I could see Pitbull, Emmett, fight night, co-main event. Obviously with the crowd, I think we're kind of getting rid of the Apex after these next two in early August. That's where I think I would see Patricio Pitbull next. For Dan Ige, I don't know. Ige was just not able to get going in that fight. He wasn't able to throw big. He wasn't able to land big. Again, was this a peak and vintage Patricio Pitbull performance? No, it wasn't, right? Because I don't think that guy is still around. The same guy who knocked out Michael Chandler, the same guy who melted through guys over in Bellator. I mean, we knew, again, the run was kind of coming to an end after the AJ McKee loss. And sure, he got his win back, but then he had the Jeremy Kennedy fight where he didn't look bad, but just you kind of knew it was coming to an end eventually. I thought he was still going to have enough in the tank to beat a guy like Yair, who has shown negative grappling, but obviously didn't go his way. I think if Pitbull keeps fighting like he did against Ige, I think he could be really successful in the UFC, at least where he's at in the weight class. Is he going to be a top 10 fighter? Maybe, but getting in the top 5, obviously not. But against these 8 to 15 guys, if Pitbull fights like this, I think he can be really successful. Took away Ige's power in this fight because of the grappling, because of the striking he was able to do as well. So I got to give Patricio a lot of credit here. Let's move on now to the feature bout of the night, Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Again, fight IQ is a thing, guys. It's a real thing. Kevin Holland, I thought won the first round. Okay, I thought he won the first. Second round, obviously, is won by D-Rod. He drops Holland twice. I don't know how Daniel Rodriguez did not finish Kevin Holland in that second round. At the same time, I don't know how Kevin Holland did not finish Daniel Rodriguez in the third round. There's a point in that third round where Holland wobbles D-Rod, and D-Rod's like looking away, and just I thought the fight was over. It was a little bit like when Tony Ferguson got blasted with that final last shot against Justin Gaethje at 249. Not to the same extent, obviously, but it was just like, all right, it looked like D-Rod was out of the fight. Holland chases him to the ground, and eventually is stuck looking for submissions. I don't know. I don't know why Holland just didn't continue to punch in that spot, because I thought the finish was going to be there for him. He just ran out of time for the most part, but really, I mean, by the time that fight was ending, it was like, all right, well, it's not like Holland's chasing the finish no more. He was put on his back for a little bit. D-Rod had recovered enough, and Rodriguez wins the second round as well. The thing is, all right, the first round is where this fight is determined. I thought Holland did enough in the first round. You can look pure numbers all you want. Holland outstrikes D-Rod by 11 strikes in that first round, and I just, again, watched that first round. I think Holland does more. The output is more. I know he's throwing a lot more than D-Rod, but he's landing more than D-Rod as well. Sure, I expected more grappling out of Kevin Holland, and he wasn't able to get the takedown that he shot in the first round, or at least attempted to tie up and get. But still, I think Holland wins that first. Again, second round's all D-Rod, and third round's all Holland. I was a little surprised when I heard the scorecards. I really was. I thought Holland was going to take it 2-1, but sure, the most dominant round of the fight was Daniel Rodriguez. I thought Holland was done in the second round, but at the same time, I thought Rodriguez was done in the third round as well. So it is what it is. I don't think it was a good card. Now, it's not as outrageous of a scorecard, I think, as Praau Veretnikov. They're both pretty bad. No, I think Praau probably has a better claim to win than Kevin Holland does. I thought Praau easily won rounds 2 and 3. But again, two guys who ultimately lost their fight because of a lack of fight IQ. So, I don't know. Holland is just going to continue to fall back into the spot where, all right, he's just an entertaining guy. He lost his ranking to Daniel Rodriguez. So now Holland's just going to be a guy that's going to be on main cards of pay-per-views when they need him to fill in, and he's just going to have fun fights. That's what Holland's going to continue to be. D-Rod's going, I guess, to get his crack in the top 15. He's going to lose immediately. Because Daniel Rodriguez, at 38 years of age, is not a very good fighter. It shows, again, Holland on his best night can be really good, and on his worst night, he can lose to D-Rod. A 38-year-old D-Rod. Don't like it. Moving on to the co-main event, Paulo Costa beats Roman Copilov. And made it look kind of easy too, dare I say. Costa dominates the fight, drops Copilov in the first round, and then honestly kind of just gets to coast from there on out. Again, the output is there out of Costa, right? He goes out there and he does a great job out striking Copilov in the second and third rounds, but it kind of just felt like to me that Copilov kind of just went into autopilot mode as soon as he got knocked down in that first round. Costa easily takes that and then just gets to coast to victory from there because Costa was first, Costa was throwing more, and ultimately he wins the fight by unanimous decision, 3-0. I don't know what round Chris Lee gave Roman Copilov. You gave Copilov the third? I don't see it. I don't see it at all. Good victory for Paulo Costa, right? He calls out Khamzat Chimaev after the victory. Okay, that's great. He's not going to get the Khamzat fight, even if Khamzat loses to Dricus, which I think he will, but we'll get to that later next month. Costa needed to win. We detailed this throughout the week, and it was very true. His last real victory against a guy who at the time was an active fighter was Yoel Romero in 2019. Yes, he had the win over Luke Rockhold. That was an exhibition fight for all I'm concerned. Rockhold was not an active fighter when he took that fight, and obviously Paulo Costa went in there and beat him. Costa needed to win a fight in the top 15. He did exactly that. He beat an up-and-coming guy who's only lost in the UFC, at least recently, was Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. A good win for Paulo Costa. Really good win. Showed that he can go out there and strike. Still with an elite kickboxer, I would say, in Roman Copilov. I'm impressed by Costa. I am. Where does he go from here? Obviously a top 15 middleweight. He's not going to get the Khamzat fight, even if Khamzat loses. It just does not make sense for him to get that fight. I could see maybe Marvin Vtori. I know they fought before. Everyone's booked. That's the problem. We went over that earlier. Everyone's booked at 185. If Shara wins his next fight, maybe, Jack Hermanson. I think Costa, they can't give him another top guy because, he hasn't beaten anybody other than Copilov, and all the top guys are booked. Maybe, actually, I could see this. The loser of Whitaker and RDR, especially if it is Reiner de Ritter, then I could easily see him getting Paulo Costa just next. Good victory for Costa. Copilov showed he wasn't ready for prime time. Can't beat the elite level guys. Got a shot in the top 15 against Anthony Hernandez. Lost. Got another shot in the top 15 against Paulo Costa. Again, just not ready for prime time. Got that one over Chris Curtis earlier in the year. That one, I don't know. Again, should he have got the finish? Should he have not? And it is what it is. Costa gets the win over Copilov in a very good 30-27 decision for him. And to the main event. Max Holloway ends the career of Dustin Poirier. He wins via unanimous decision to retain the BMF championship. I have no problems with the scorecard. I really don't. I scored it 4-1 Max. For as much as I wanted it to be 2-2 going into the fifth, personally, I can't reason for Max Holloway losing the fourth round. That's, I think, the argument for Dustin. I guess that one 48-47 card, it would be giving Dustin both 2 and 4. I saw one judge gave Dustin the third. I don't know how you give Dustin the third round. Max just, outstruck him. I know Dustin had his moments late in the third round, but that felt like a Max Holloway round. Max Holloway shows that, yes, he's still very elite, and he's more than elite at 155 pounds, right? Max Holloway's victories now at lightweight in the last 5 years, because again, I'm not going to include the first Poirier loss, the second Poirier loss that happened in 18-19. Max has come back to 155 pounds and he's beaten Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier now at back-to-back fights at 155. The problem for Max Holloway is, Ilia Topuria fights in his weight class. Again, he's obviously not going back down to 45, which has a champion in which he's lost 2-3 times already. But I don't really think Max can get another title shot unless he wins 2 more, which don't put it past Max Holloway to do that. But again, he's in another problem where he's obviously not better than the world champion, and he's just going to have to continue to fight these ranked guys, top 5 guys, and sure, he can beat them, but what happens again when he gets that title shot? Max looked really good with the exception of the end of the second round, right? Max wobbles Dustin in the second. He gets Dustin down. Dustin fights his way back up to his feet, and for the last minute and a half of the second round, Max looked horrible. Dustin cracks him. Max gets dropped for the second time in his career. I thought that was Poirier's window, and Poirier did look like the fresher fighter from there on forward, at least in the corners after the end of the second round. It did look like Dustin was the fresher guy. Obviously, that was not the case. I mean, I think Max looked fine in the rounds 3 through 5, right? Holloway, the reason Max won this fight is because he was too quick for Dustin. And the difference in the adjustment, I guess, that was made from that second fight that happened in Atlanta in 2018 was that Max was just doing way more damage with his strikes, Because numbers-wise, it's not all that much similar, but I mean, it's not identical, but it's kind of the same trend, right? Max does outstrike Dustin, but Dustin, for the most part in the second fight, did more damage with those strikes. The third fight, Max is doing the same amount of damage, if not more damage with his strikes, and he is still outvoluming Dustin by double the amount of output. Max Holloway's good, man. He's good. And I think it was again, you could tell from the first minute of that fight, when Max is just landing more. Max is finding the openings. Holloway is doing more damage. And all the way till the last second of the fight, where Max, in Max Holloway fashion, points to the ground, last 10 seconds, they do the whole slug it out thing. Dustin clinches, because I think Dustin felt, okay, this guy's throwing way faster than me. The only real shot that Dustin throws in that wild exchange is a right hook, and he misses. But Max is throwing he's throwing back and forth. He's throwing 1s and 2s. He's throwing hooks back and forth, back and forth. It's just, Max obviously trains that all the time. We saw that in the Ricardo Lamas fight, even though that was the way Holloway approached that, that stand and bang war at the last 10 seconds in the Lamas fight. He was throwing nothing but overhands for the most part. He doesn't do that now. He just throws everything inside against Gaethje and against Dustin. He's just way too quick. You can't play that game with Max, even though Ilia wanted to and Holloway said no early in the fight. Dustin has to clinch, obviously. I think he felt the power a little bit, felt how much quicker Max was as well, so he just went in there, clinched, and didn't want to get knocked out, obviously, like Justin Gaethje did. But yes, Max was just way quicker. Max was way quicker, and he defends the BMF championship, wins it 4-1. I think the only round they can give Dustin is the second, and I think Dustin very well should have won the second round. Where does Max go? I'm going to say it's Charles Olivera. If it's not, Charles Olivera or Conor McGregor, because here's the thing. Max Holloway, they're going to do the BMF stipulation again with Max Holloway. It's an easy way where you can get a main event of a pay-per-view with not a real title on the line. I don't know who's going to be fighting Ilia Topuria next. It's going to be Arman, Paddy, or Gaethje. I think in likeliness, probably Gaethje, Paddy, Arman. We'll see. I could easily see them doing Max and Arman, or at least that makes sense in my opinion. But they're not going to let Arman Tsarukyan fight for the BMF championship. His last fight he missed weight, so they're not going to give him a shot at the BMF belt. Who at 155 legitimately makes sense to fight for this type of Legends belt for the most part? It's Charles. I know Charles is coming off a loss, but that just makes sense. They're not going to let Dan Hooker fight for the BMF after that win over Gamrot. It would be a rematch between Max and Charles. They fought all the way back in 2015. It was a shoulder injury that ended up, finishing the fight back in a main event in Saskatchewan, Canada, back in August of 2015. It's the fight I'd do. It's easily the fight I would do next. Would that be kind of an easy fight, I think, for Max? Yeah. I think Max probably keeps the fight standing, and I think he probably knocks out Charles in the first. I know, again, you need a little bit of time for that fight to happen. Let's say January of next year. Max will probably want to fight sooner than that. So then I guess you could do Gamrot, you could do Tsarukyan, but those are not, BMF type fights. You could do Paddy Pimblett. That's the next fight I think they would probably do for Max. If Paddy's not getting the title shot, then yeah, you should do Paddy and Holloway. And yeah, throw the BMF on that as well. Honestly, that's probably what I would do. It just makes way more sense. That's a marketable type fight, and then you can have, okay, if Max wins that fight against Paddy, then yes, he deserves the next title shot, and he should get his rematch against Ilya. For Dustin Poirier, great career, obviously. One of the greatest fighters of all time, probably the greatest fighter ever to not win the Undisputed World Championship. Chael Sonnen, but Chael did retire 50-0. It's a career where he fought the best guys, beat Conor McGregor twice, could never win the big one. And I'm not even calling the BMF Championship the big one, but obviously went 0-3 in title fights, not to try to take anything away from Dustin Poirier. Again, great career, one of the greatest of all time. Again, though, went 0-3 in title fights, went 0-2 in BMF title fights, didn't win the interim belt, so he does have that to hang his head on, obviously. And obviously, right, 2 wins over Conor McGregor, you can't really top that. Tonight wasn't his night. I think Poirier, if he wanted to stick around 100% could. There would be fights for Dustin Poirier. Like, I could, Dustin and Paddy Pimblett would be interesting. Dustin versus Beneil Dariush. Like, I think Dustin would win that fight. Dustin versus Renato Moicano. Like, Poirier's just not going to hang around and fight guys, obviously, in that 7-12 range. And Dustin's obviously made it very clear. I mean, they did the whole retirement package and everything. There's no pathway back for Dustin Poirier. If he had beaten Max Holloway, I could have seen him sticking around. He loses. It just makes sense to end it in New Orleans. And obviously, all things considered, he is done, obviously. Great career, one of the greatest ever. But right, Max Holloway was just the better, fighter. Tonight, he got better as the trilogy went on, obviously. And Max Holloway should set himself up for another really big fight that should probably put him one away from a championship. Or probably should put him next in line for the championship if he's able to win that next fight. So, folks, that'll do it for our full card recap here for UFC 318. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. We'll be back again tomorrow, or in about 12 hours, maybe less, for those UFC Abu Dhabi predictions with Robert Whittaker and RDR Rainer de Ritter in the main event. So, folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba